Hey everyone, okay, so today we're going to be starting the Masterclass series, and this is on skin prep. So how to prep the skin so that it is the most beautiful it can be for your makeup application. So the first thing we're going to do is start with just cleansing the skin. Now my skin has already been washed, but you want to just start off by making sure that everything is removed. So some micellar water, a cotton pad, and just go over the skin and just make sure, that it is completely free of anything. And I would always start with this step regardless. And just really focus on the hairline. Just make sure everything is completely set. Now, when it comes to skin prep, you want to prep the skin for the makeup application that you're going to do. So for this one, I'm going to be erring on the side of a medium coverage on foundation. So therefore, I'm going to be using more primer and less moisturizer. The reason being is my skin is oily and I'm not going to be using a very full coverage. If someone was going to use a lot of foundation or wants a full coverage look with a lot of powder, I would skip primer and just use moisturizer. Because primer tends to allow things to adhere to it. And with full coverage, it can build up a very heavy look very fast. Moisturizer and a lot of it can make a full coverage makeup look a lot more natural. So I'm going to moisturize my face, but only with a really small amount. And it's just enough to allow the skin to have some slip. And then I'll go in and work in with primer in a moment. But this just allows there to be a softer surface for the makeup to glide onto. So the next step for me would be primer. So I'm going to apply primer, and I'm going to apply a fair amount, and I'm going to dot it onto the T-zone area, and then I will just work it out. You can use a sponge or a brush. I just prefer to use my fingers to work in the product. And then I start from the T-zone and I move it out. And I'm making sure I go underneath the eyes, right the way out. Now obviously I'm going to avoid my chin and beard area, but you're just working it into the skin and making sure you're getting the inner corners, the outer corners. Then whatever's left on the finger, I just very lightly just tap it over the eyelids. And I want to make sure that it's absorbed into the skin before we move on to the next step. So the next step for me in skin prep, before we do anything else, is I like to take a setting spray and I like to just spray the face in a kind of cross section all over. This just allows the skin to get slightly tacky so foundation adheres even better to it when we move on to it. So you just want to give it a shake, and I like to just go in a cross section and then an X. And it's just enough that it allows the skin to be marginally tacky so that when you move on to foundation in a moment, it just adheres better to the skin and just generally looks better on the skin as well. And longevity things, it will really help take care of that as well. So that's how we prep the skin. Now again, if you're going to use a lot of foundation and powder, skip primer and just use moisturizer and use a lot of it. The more the merrier when it comes to full coverage looks, because you are going to be building up product quite heavily. And moisturizer, particularly when you start to powder, will look so much better than if you use a lot of primer. And if you're going to use a small amount of foundation, then just use as much moisturizer as necessary and then use primer, because it will look more beautiful and last longer. So that's the first step taken care of in the skin prep. Everything has been prepped, and next we move on. So I'll see you soon.